Yo, it's L.
Spider-Man Sweaterman back in here talking about the Zelda movie. I know they announced it forever ago, but didn't really know when to cover it, when would be a good time. Figured since I'm taking a break from the Zelda Quest, and the Zelda Quest will return in January, now's probably a good time to talk about the movie. I'm going to break things up into categories just to make it a bit easier. So let's start with Link's voice. I've said it before, but I don't want Link to talk. I think if they do have a Link who speaks, they can pull it off. Like, it can be done well. I just don't want a situation where he's like, I don't want it to be a Marvel movie or just a dumb comedy character where he's just cracking jokes or he says and does stupid things and we laugh at him, because it's like, well, you know, this dude's supposed to be fighting monsters, solving puzzles. You sort of get a sense that he's at least intelligent in some way and he's capable. So it's like, I don't want to see a character like that turn into a bumbling idiot. I think Link, you can even say in the movie, just explain like, oh, because he's Kokiri or something, he can only speak to fairies. So he has Navi with him and maybe she speaks everybody. And he doesn't really talk or say anything, but Navi would just be like, oh, this is what we're doing. We're sent by Zelda to do this or to do that. So she sort of does the speaking for him. But again, not to say a speaking Link can't work. It just has to be done well. But just for me, I just prefer the silent Link. What game will they adapt? I'm not saying they should adapt any specific game, or that they will, but if I had to guess which one they would adapt, I would say Ocarina of Time. I would love to see a Majora's Mask movie, but they're probably not going to do anything like that the first go around. Like Wind Waker, I haven't played it yet, but I imagine a flooded Hyrule probably isn't anywhere where they're going to start. I think A Link to the Past would be a good choice. You know, you sort of get the origins of Ganon. You find out his name was Ganondorf Dragmire or whatever it was, and they talk about him being imprisoned and all that. Ocarina of Time does talk about the goddesses making the Triforce, the land of Hyrule, and all that. Those would be good choices. Twilight Princess is cool, but I don't think they're going to do the whole wolf thing. At least not the first movie. Any of the handhelds, I don't see any of them. Like the Oracle games, I love you guys, but I don't think they're going to start with those. Again, if they adapt the game. Skyward Sword, I haven't played it yet. I know there's a character called Demise, and he sort of sets up the whole loop where Ganon keeps coming back. Maybe they can start there. But again, not having played it, I don't want to sort of speak on it or guess, because I honestly don't know enough about the game to make those kinds of guesses. And the only other ones I could see, and I sort of hope they don't, is Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Not to say they're bad games or anything, but it would just sort of feel like, oh, because these are the new games and people can still buy these or whatever, like maybe we should sort of base the games off of them so people buy them or whatever, because they're probably going to make more money off selling those than the old games, to be honest. But they could also just do an original thing, which is fine. It could just be like just a mix from like every Zelda game. They take a bit from here and there and they put something together. That's cool too. But yeah, if I was a betting man and someone said they are going to adapt a game, which one do you think? My pick would be Ocarina of Time. That would be my suggestion as well, but deep down I want a Majora's Mask movie too. That is just, it would be cool. You know that it would. Worries I have. So my biggest worry is that the movie would be too short. Let's just say it's an hour and a half, 90 minutes, right? Let's just say they adapt Ocarina of Time. Okay, well, the spiritual stones. Well, let's just say you take 10 minutes to set everything up, the whole world, the lore, this and that. Then you do 10 minutes per spiritual stone, so that's already 40 minutes of the movie, the setup, the stones. Then you have the 5 temples. Well, that's 50 minutes, so you're already at 80 minutes. And then you have 10 minutes in Ganon's castle. It would feel like it's too fast, because then it's like, well, you got to do the dungeon in like 5 minutes, and then you fight the boss for 5 minutes. But then what about the in-between for the dungeons? Like, I think the Netflix version of Death Note is a good example of this, as is the Dragon Ball Z live-action movie. Not every potential IP should be made into a short hour and a half or even 2-hour movie. Not everything works well or fits into that framework. Like Dragon Ball Z, it's half the manga. Technically, the original manga is just Dragon Ball. It's a story of Goku meeting Bulma, and it ends with, the defeat of Buu. And it's like, that's a lot. If you're just going to try to do that in an hour and a half, even if you just do the Z portion from like the Saiyan saga to the end of the Buu arc, it's like, how do you squeeze that into an hour and a half? Like, you're out of your mind. So like, you know what I mean? So a Zelda movie, to have the sense of exploration, the temples, stuff like that, like I feel like maybe not a trilogy, but like at least do 2 movies. And I don't mean like, set up for a sequel, like write it, film it, make it like it's like Lord of the Rings. You knew that it was going to be a trilogy, and you knew there was going to be an overarching story and everything, and they were going to continue it. And it, like, that's my biggest worry, is that it's going to be too short, and it's just going to feel like Link goes into a temple, solves a puzzle, fights a boss, temple done. And then you're just like, especially if they adapt from a game, wouldn't you feel a bit cheaped out if you're like, man, I love this game. I spent so much time playing it as a kid, and they just flew past like everything. That's my biggest worry. The only other thing I'm worried about too is that there's going to be too much CGI in the movie, because it's Zelda. I know it's easy to like CGI it and stuff, and for me it's like, at that point, why not just make it animated? You know what I mean? Like a lot of these Marvel movies too, like I like Marvel, but there's times where it's like, why do you have to CGI like everything, man? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just somebody, like Civil War, it's like they're in a field, but it's like the field CGI. It's like, you couldn't film in a field? There's like 5 fields near my house. You know what I mean? You guys can't find one to film at? And it's like, in the armor CGI. It's like, why? Just give him plastic armor. Like, am I crazy? I feel like everybody's crazy except me. But yeah, it's just too much CGI. It's like, go film where they filmed Lord of the Rings. It's like, there you go. There's a bunch of Zelda stuff. You can use miniatures too. I just don't want it to look cheap. Like, I know it's based off a video game. Arguably, it's like, just use a video game. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, just boot up the Ocarina of Time engine and then just high-res it to like 4K. Just use like gameplay footage or something. I joke, but it's weird that they're doing a live-action Zelda. I just find that strange. Why not just do there's so many different styles for Zelda games. Like the Link's Awakening, the Switch remaster is like chibi style. Yeah, I guess like the Toon Link and Wind Waker, I don't know, that's not chibi style, but it's like its own style. Twilight Princess was like a bit dark and stuff. So it's like you have all these different art styles and stuff. You couldn't just like base it off that. I'm just worried they're gonna CGI stuff, like the bosses and stuff. Like Volvega, the fire dragon. Like, you can't really just you can't just pay a dragon to fly around. You obviously have to make it CG, but I hope it's not bad CG. That's what worries me. Hopefully it's good. Things I want to see. Now, I gotta be realistic. Fierce Deity. Would love to see a live-action Fierce Deity. Probably not going to get one ever. Definitely not going to get one in the first movie. So, I do want to see items. Like the classic Zelda items. Like, I'm the only person, I swear, I'm the only person who thinks that there should have been classic Zelda items in the last 2 games. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, it's like, you get a boomerang and stuff, but it wears and it tears and you gotta find a new one because everything breaks, and I get it, that's part of the game, but like, Hook shots? Really? You couldn't put a hook shot or a long shot in the game? Bottles? You freaks? You couldn't even put bottles in Tears of the Kingdom or anything? Like, come on. What are you doing? Maybe the Ocarina. It'd be nice to see the Ocarina. I wouldn't even mind seeing Navi. As far as I know, the 64 games were the only ones where you have a fairy companion. And I understand why, for like Z-targeting and the story and this and that. But like still, I thought that was cool. And like when I pictured Link, it is the Ocarina of Time one I picture, because I do usually picture him with a fairy, and I do like seeing Link with a fairy because I don't know how much years of my childhood were spent on the N64 games, but that is what I want to see. I'd love to see the big Goron sword, love to see like a red tunic, something like that. Even Shadow Link. I feel like the first Zelda movie, we may or may not see Shadow Link. We have a better chance of seeing him than some other stuff, but that would be cool to see too. Just like the classic Zelda items, man, like the Mirror Shield. Again, like you can get the Hylian Shield in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, but it's like, well, there's no Mirror Shield, and even if there was one, it would just wear down and break, and it's like, it's just like the big Goron sword. It breaks. It's like, come on, man. Didn't you play Ocarina of Time? I know this is a side note, but I don't care. Like, I get that everything in the new games break, but if you played Ocarina of Time, you get the Giant's Knife, which breaks, and then the whole thing is the big Goron sword doesn't break. And then like the Fierce Deity sword breaks in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, are you mental? I don't know. You know, that just frustrates me. We're not going to get into it. But that's like what I want to see. Just classic Zelda items, like the gloves. I think the one, like the power gloves, just even small things like that, to be like, someone somewhere paid attention and put these things in the movie. Like, that's what I want to see, and that's what I want to feel like when I see something. I'm just like, oh man, they put this in. Like the gold and blue chest from Ocarina of Time, for example. It's like, oh man, you see one of those. Like, it's those little things that you're just like, someone's paying attention. This is great stuff. What I think we'll see: Zelda, Ganon, the Triforce, Link, the Master Sword. Those are probably like 99% chance you're going to see that. Lake Hylia, Hyrule Field, the Lost Woods, Hyrule Castle. Feel like you have a strong chance of seeing those. Hopefully some like classic enemies would be cool, like maybe a Lionel. I mean, for sure you're going to have to see the enemies. I think we'll probably see at least a dungeon or two in some sort of format. A boss fight, maybe we could see a classic Zelda boss or two. That would be really cool as well. The Deku Tree, maybe we might see him. The Legend of Zelda series has tons of games in it. There's a lot of them to pull ideas from. See, the Mario movie was like a double-edged sword. It was good because it showed that Nintendo can make good movies based off their properties. But it was bad in a sense because you sort of expect the Zelda movie to be on par with that, and there are going to be people who expect it to be better. At the end of the day, I just want a Legend of Zelda movie that really feels like it was made by people who care and took the time to make sure it feels like a movie based off the game. At the time of recording, there's not really any information on the movie. To be honest, I don't know if it's even in pre-production or production at this point. Pretty sure it's all just pre-production, but that would just be a guess. I don't really know. I am excited though to see how this turns out, and honestly, I hope it turns out for the best. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.